Hey guys, Felix here, and today I want to talk about strings. So I've got myself a set of these new Ernie Ball Paradigm strings, and I've also got a pack of D'Addario NYXLs, which I'll talk about in a bit. But right now, I want to focus on these Ernie Ball strings. So since I started playing guitar, I have always used Ernie Ball Super Slinkies. So the 9 to 42 set. So these new D'Addario Paradigm strings have come along, and basically the idea is, what they claim is that they're unbreakable and they won't rust, and if they do, within 90 days, they will give you a set for free, which is pretty cool. It's a bold claim too. So I decided, hey, why not, try a different, not a different brand and a different kind of string and see if there's any difference there. So I got myself the Paradigm strings. So this is, for this, these are my old strings, Super Slinkies that have just come off the guitar. This here is the box that they come in. So it's this nice cardboard box. This just says, the gauge on it, in Paradigm, and basically, you see here, superior break resistance, durability. What I'm hoping to get from them is a longer lasting string. So I want to change strings in a month rather than in 2 weeks, or maybe a month and a half, 2 months. Let's see how long they'll last. I want to do that while also getting the same feel that I got from my Super Slinkies. So I want the same performance, but I just want a longer lifespan. So it comes in this nice cardboard, which then, you get this packaging that you have to open up. This sort of, silver plasticky packaging that it's sort of sealed up in, that goes inside the box. And then within all of that, we have the actual strings themselves. So basically what you would get with, Super Slinkies, each string individually wrapped in a little paper thing like this. So now I have strung up a new set of Ernie Ball Paradigms on my Strat, and I am going to tune up, test it out, and give you a review. After I do that, I am going to restring my beautiful Telecaster and put the NYXLs on there, and then let you know what I think of those. So be back in a second. So here's Daphne trying to eat my guitar cable, my main cable. Anyway, here we are back with the Telecaster. I just took the strings off, wiped it down, and we are going to get the NYXLs out. So these guys' claim to fame, very similar to the Ernie Ball Paradigms. They basically are supposed to, well, I'll read from the package. Bend further, sing louder, and stay in tune better than any guitar string ever made. So, bend further, sing louder, and stay in tune better. So from what I understand, these are made to actually sound different on your guitar. Something with the metals they use is supposed to make them, I don't know, you're supposed to hear the high end a little bit better. Also, they're supposed to be stronger than regular D'Addario XL strings. So I use D'Addario strings on my acoustic guitars, but I've never used D'Addario on an electric before. To my knowledge, I may have played someone else's that had them, but as far as I'm concerned, I've never bought a pack of D'Addario electric guitar strings. It's always been the D'Addario, I think it's the EJ series of acoustic guitar strings. So this will be my first time using D'Addario electric guitar strings, and yeah, so this will be interesting. So the way we open it up is, let's just kind of zip it up here. So we pull this tab to open it, and as usual with D'Addario strings, the tab, when you pull it, doesn't quite come off how you expect, so you just kind of have to murder it and rip it off like so. And these are also a set of 9s, just like the Ernie Balls that I've been using. So let's see what we got in here. Oh, interesting. They give you a sticker with theirs. Well, shit, for 15 bucks, it better come with a sticker. I'm pretty sure I paid like $15 for this single pack of strings. So, another sticker to add to my collection of stickers that came with gear. So, just like D'Addario's acoustic strings, these come in one package, one sealed package. So it's just one package, and you're supposed to know which string is which by the color of the ball ends. And it also has a guide here inside the box. So you guys all know what strings look like. I'm going to go ahead and just put these on and come back when this beautiful... I was just admiring how beautiful it was. Sometimes I forget how beautiful some of my guitars are, but I only have 3, but I'm just saying, you know, sometimes I forget how beautiful these guitars are, and I haven't played this for a few days, and I'm just admiring the color of it, you know. I'm sure everyone's seen, you know, whatever this color is, Lake Placid blue or whatever it is, Tele or Strat in their lives, but damn, you know, these maple necks with these colors are just gorgeous. Anyway, I'm going to string it up with these D'Addarios, which are supposed to, again, be stronger. They're supposed to be stronger and give you a little more high end. So they're supposed to like be a little bit louder on the highs. And some people say they're supposed to last longer than regular, you know, NYXLs. I don't know about that one. Again, and like I said before, I've never had a problem with string breakage, so I don't know, you know, exactly how to test these, you know, because my strings just never break. I mean, the test is going to be how do they feel on the guitar and do they last long. So as I first string this up, I'm going to string it up, tune it up. I'm going to play both of these guitars for an equal amount of hours. I'm going to track the hours on each, and then come back, you know, in a few weeks and just kind of document as I go the feel of each string. And I'm going to compare each of them to the Ernie Ball Super Slinkies, right? And I know it might not be a fair comparison with the Telecaster because we're using NYXLs on here, but I'm just going to, in general, you know, try to compare Ernie Ball Super Slinkies versus NYXLs from D'Addario and the Paradigm strings from so it's Super Slinkies versus NYXLs versus Paradigms. That's the test, and I will let you know how they feel, how long they last, and how they sound, I guess. Okay guys, so I've strung up both guitars, the Telecaster and the Stratocaster, so my Tele Strat here. Both use locking tuners, they're both the same scale length. So first impressions, as far as the Strat goes, my first impression was compared to Ernie Ball Super Slinkies, it took longer for the Paradigms to, stretch out and to stretch out basically, so that I could tune them to pitch. Usually with my Super Slinkies, like I said, both guitars have locking tuners. Usually I you know, put a string, you know, a Super Slinky, lock it in the locking tuner, lock it in the peg, give it a couple whines, and from, you know, pull on it a little bit, and from there, you know, 10-20 seconds, it's good to go. You can tune it to pitch and it'll be relatively stable right out of the box. with the Paradigms, I just, it just took forever to get them stretched out. So they were stretching and stretching and stretching. It reminded me of like the first time I had ever strung up a guitar. You know, like you're tuning it. You know, your first time tuning a guitar, you keep tuning and tuning and waiting for it. You know, you're like, why does it keep going out of tune? It was an experience like that. Once it got to pitch and it was stable, it felt right. I didn't plug it in. I haven't plugged either of them into an amp yet. I'm about to do that test next. But just the feel of it was, you know, springy. It was definitely slinky. It felt slinky, just like super slinkies do. It felt slinky on the neck. It felt a little bit deader, like a little bit duller when I plucked strings. And you know what? That might be like a sound thing. I'm used to playing, you know, with the amp on, so it could be that. But yeah, it was just a little bit more dull than usual for some reason. Not sure why. But it was a small difference compared to, you know, regular super slinkies. Other than having to stretch it for a while, the Ernie Balls, you know, seem to be doing well so far. You know, I just tuned it up. As for the Telecaster, so the Telecaster here has the D'Addario NYXLs on them. So those ones needed basically no stretching at all. Like I put them in the tuner, I locked the tuning peg in, tuned it to pitch, and that was pretty much it. It was just kind of a done deal. Like I was really surprised. I was, you know, banging on the strings, trying to stretch it out. Nothing. Like it was tuned up and stretched, you know, within 10 seconds of locking it into the peg, into the tuning machine. It was really crazy how fast the Tele got tuned up. So that was really, you know, that was a delightful surprise. You know, I was delighted by that. As far as the way they feel, they don't feel as slinky as the Ernie Balls, and they have a very pronounced dullness to them. They feel kind of dead. Now, I played this not through an amp. I just played them acoustically just to see how they felt, and they feel a little dull. You know, like new strings usually feel springy, and the NYXLs didn't feel springy. They had a kind of a dullness to them, which was, you know, just odd to me. But you know what? I had a little bit of that with the Ernie Balls too. So maybe it's, you know, this kind of string, this sort of string that is made to be durable and long-lasting and bendable. Maybe that's just the price you pay for those features in a string. And if you want that springiness, then, you know, you take your chances with, you know, regular strings that could or probably will, you know, have a higher likelihood of breaking. Yeah, so that's my first impressions of these two strings. So far, they're equally matched. Would I switch permanently to either one of them? I haven't played enough to really tell you. Next up, how do they sound coming through an amp? How do they sound? And then after how do they sound, how good do they wear? You know, how durable are they? Are they going to hold up to, you know, weeks worth of playing? So we'll find that out pretty soon. All right, so it's been a little bit of time since I've tested out the D'Addario NYXLs versus the Ernie Ball Paradigm strings. It's been about 90 days now, and I'm ready to give my final verdict on them. So let's start with the D'Addarios. So I put the D'Addarios, the NYXLs, they were a pack of 9 to 42 gauge. Put them on my my Telecaster, same day that I put the Paradigms on my Strat. And the first thing I noticed, right, so pros, let's start pros and cons. The pros of the NYXLs are that they, I suppose, they get in tune very quickly, actually. So there was no real. I have locking tuners, so you know, my strings get in tune pretty quickly to begin with because of that. Um, but that doesn't mean, you know, there's not a stretch out period when you have locking tuners. So for those of you who have locking tuners, you still got to stretch out your strings. They're still going to stretch, but your strings end up getting in tune quite a bit faster. So I put the NYXLs on my Telecaster with the locking tuners. I tuned up, and immediately they were stretched out. Like I barely needed to stretch them out at all. It was the greatest feeling ever. Put them on. I tuned up to pitch, standard tuning. Just started playing, and I was able to play for a good 5 minutes or so before they started to stretch out and get out of tune again. They got stretched out. Once they were stretched out, I tuned them back up to pitch again, and that was it. That was the extent of their stretching. Just basically tuning them up to pitch once, playing, 5 minutes later, retune them, and that was it. I didn't have to touch them. They didn't, stretch at all again. So that was a great thing about the NYXLs, that they don't stretch. It doesn't take forever to stretch them out and get them, ready to play. So I would say that they'd be great for, work in the studio. If you're, anytime you really have a time crunch, especially live shows. If you get a live performance and you break a string and you're using the NYXLs, you go ahead and put on a new string, and you pretty much immediately have a string that's not going to go out of tune right away. So that was really cool about them. So after that, I played for a bit, and fair warning, I'm one of these people who takes very good care of my strings. I have a pack of terry cloths, like terry cloth towels, and after every single time that I play, I always wipe down my strings. First of all, I wash my hands before I play, and then after I'm done playing, I wipe down the neck of my guitar, especially the strings, so I don't leave the oils from my hands on there, and so it extends string life. And so I did this for both guitars. And so on the Telecaster, using the NYXLs, I played it for that one day. The first day I put it on, I left it up. I hang my guitars on my wall, hung it up for the day, let it sit there. Came back the next day and started to play some more. And I was really disappointed with the way that the NYXLs felt. If you're playing licks that involve, just a lot of, I don't know what you call it, just changing fingers, what would you call it? Things not having to do with slides, right? As long as you're not sliding, you're a-okay. You don't have to worry about the NYXLs. But if you're doing a lot of, sliding from one fret to the other, the higher strings, the high G, B, and E will feel almost like nails on a chalkboard. That's how they felt to me, at least. It felt as if they needed to be greased up in order to feel well to play. And the NYXLs, they're not coated strings. These are not coated strings. They're just regular, steel or some sort of steel alloy, whatever they are. They're just regular metal strings. So that can't be explained by me wiping down the strings. It's not like I wiped off some sort of coating that was on there or something. So this was day 2. This was like 24 hours later, and it just felt horrible sliding. It was as if you needed your hands to be oily in order for you to slide your fingers easily up and down the neck with these strings. So that's what I didn't like about them. As far as the sound,
sounded like strings, right? There was no real difference in tonality. It didn't improve sustain. It didn't worsen sustain. Um, Tone pretty much, you know, stayed the same. Um, if I had greasy, let me continue the story. So I kept them on because I had left these on, both of these, for 90 days. Um, Maybe a few days later, right? So I play every day, but maybe a few days later, I played them again. My hands were a little greasier that day, I guess, and it felt a whole lot better to play. But the feel of the strings were not consistent. The upper strings, I'm talking G, B, and E. They weren't consistent. Right? Your hands are dry, they feel like crap. Your hands are a little bit oily, they feel a lot better. Otherwise, the tone of them stay the same. Uh, they bend just the same as any other string brand I've used. Um, so overall, would I keep using them? I guess if you had said, you can only choose one string brand for the rest of your life, and you made me choose between NYXLs, uh, Ernie Ball paradigms, and just regular Ernie Ball, slinkies or super slinkies, I would not go with the NYXLs. Didn't like it. That said, I actually talked to Daddario, and I was asking, like, why do these strings feel so crappy? Like, what was, like, I felt like maybe I had gotten a bad batch. And they emailed me and they said, hey, it shouldn't feel like that, like, they're made to last. So we'll send you some free strings, and so you can try out a second set. I'm a little bit butthurt that those strings never came in the mail. I gave them my address, and it's been like 2 months now, and I just never received those strings. So I don't know. I'm kind of disappointed about that. In any case, I have ordered a second set of NYXLs, just to try them out a second time, see if my second time with them I feel differently. But this time, I would say, if you're someone who uses Daddario strings on your electric guitars, you'll probably like the NYXLs. If you're someone who doesn't use Daddarios on your electrics, it's worth a shot. They're not bad. They're not bad. They are pricey though. They're like $15 for a set of strings. That's crazy. Um, it's crazy, but they do last. I will give that. They do last. They went for about a month before I sort of saw any signs of sort of rust, or like that weird kind of corrosion you feel on your strings. So they were good enough. So I'll see how my second set holds up. Now, the paradigms, the Ernie Ball paradigms, I got a set again of 9 to 42s, so basically super slinkies, but paradigm super slinkies. I put those on my Strat same day that I put the NYXLs on my Telecaster, and those initially felt exactly like regular Ernie Ball super slinkies. Really no difference in the feeling of them. What I will say about them, what's different about the Ernie Ball paradigms versus the regular Ernie Balls, is that the paradigms took a whole lot more stretching than regular super slinkies to finally get in tune. With regular Ernie Balls, I put them on. Again, my Strat also has locking tuners. I put them on, stretch them out, tune to pitch, and there's a little break-in period where they'll go out of tune for a little while, and you have to keep on retuning it. But it's not really that big of a deal. With the paradigms, I noticed that break-in period was quite a bit longer, and I don't just put strings on, tune to pitch, and start playing. Like, I stretch the strings out. I physically stretch them out and play real hard on them, and purposely try to get those things to stretch before I really tune them. And what I was finding with the paradigms was that they would keep stretching and stretching and stretching, and I was like, whoa, these things are just, they're not settling at all, are they? It took a significant amount of time. It was a noticeable amount of time. There's a noticeable difference between the time it takes for a paradigm string to stretch out versus a regular, super slinky to stretch out and become stable. So that was sort of a con for the paradigms. Other than that, the way it played was just fine. It played like they played like Ernie Ball slinkies do. There really wasn't a big difference, and so me, like a lot of other people, some people, there is a group of people who have problems with breaking strings. I don't have that problem. Most of us, I think, most guitar players I know, that I've seen elsewhere, that I've talked with online, most of us don't have issues with string breakage. So one of the paradigm claims was that they're super strong and you can stretch them out forever, and they're not going to break or anything. They're not going to break or corrode for at least 90 days. And the thing about breakage just didn't apply to me. So I didn't really test the strength of the string because I don't need to. I don't break strings. I just played like I normally played. They felt, after they settled, which took, by the second day, they were definitely settled. Anyway, they played like regular Ernie Balls do. One thing I noticed was the first day they were, unlike the NYXLs, the higher strings were much easier to just slide across. Even if your hands were bone dry, they didn't have that sort of like nails on chalkboard, like feeling like you were really forcing it, like you need to lube up your hand in order to slide your finger over the strings. That didn't happen a single time with the paradigm strings. And I'm talking about, the same day that I had this issue with the NYXLs, I just switched guitars, play the one that had the paradigms on them, and the paradigms just work fine, right? And the strings were exactly the same. They were the same age. They were put on, literally one set was put on right after the other on two different guitars. So, I was doing this review under, the exact same conditions. So the first day was great with them. As far as tone and everything goes, there was really no change in tone. Didn't make it sound any better. Wasn't sounding any worse. Didn't get more sustain. Didn't get less sustain. They were just strings, honestly. Just really expensive strings that came in a cool looking package. So cut to the second day, they were still fresh. Third, fourth, fifth day, still fresh. And then there came a day about maybe around the fifth day, where when you keep a guitar on a stand or you hang it on a wall and you go to it and you pick it up and you can kind of feel like there's some rust on here. There's some sort of grime on my string. Like, what's going on here? That happened with the paradigms, weirdly enough. And the paradigms were the strings that were supposed to, be resistant to that sort of thing. So I was like, whoa, are these strings rusting out on me? Like, after not even a week? So I picked it up, played the guitar, and I have to tell you, this is the strangest thing. I guess, I don't know how to describe this. Like, it felt like there was sort of a film on the string when I first picked it up, but when I plugged in and I played, the first time I just like kind of slid my fingers across the strings and just started playing, they just went back to feeling like nothing had happened. And remember, I wipe down my strings after every single time that I play. So it's not like I had greasy fingers and then I just put the guitar away and, let grime just, accumulate on there. So I don't know what the deal is with that, but basically after the first week, just about every day I would feel at some point somewhere along the top strings, the the higher strings, the G, B, and E strings, somewhere along there, you would feel like a sort of like a grit or something. But when you played, it never got in my way. It never felt like, ew, this is a rusty spot, or ew, this is a grimy spot. You just play, and suddenly it's like, oh, it disappeared suddenly. It's not there anymore. It was like it just magically vanished. Like as soon as you put your fingers on the string, it just shakes off whatever grime is on there, which is strange. Um, so, would I buy the Paradigm strings again? I'm an Ernie Ball guy, right? So I'm more likely, I've always, since I was, since I first started playing, I've always played Super Slinkies. So I probably will. They probably won't be my main string. I'll probably, stick to Super Slinkies until they stop making them, and, or the price drops on, if the price dropped on the Paradigms, I would switch to Paradigms full time, because they're basically the same price as the NYXLs. They're like $15, right? Both strings, the NYXLs and the Paradigms, are about $15 each for one pack. That's really expensive. So if Ernie Ball dropped the price on the Paradigms, I think I would switch over. Would I get any benefit out of that as an Ernie Ball person, someone who uses Ernie Ball strings? Not really. I don't break strings, and well, I guess the one benefit I would probably get out of it is longer lasting strings, because in both cases, with the NYXLs and with the Ernie Balls, over the 90-day period, both of them retained their crispness for longer than strings usually do. That I have to give to them. So both of them did that. If I had to pick one over the other, I would pick the Paradigm strings. And the reason I would pick the Paradigm strings, despite that weird issue with the kind of, that cruddy feeling on the strings that instantly vanished, I would pick the Ernie Balls because they felt the freshest for longest. Whereas the NYXLs felt like the string had like dried out, and it was hard to slide, and it just, like, even when I think about it, it's like, it's like hearing the sound of nails on a chalkboard. And I don't know if it's just me or other people out there have experienced this, but you ever like picked up a guitar, and the B and E strings are just really old and crappy, and you try to slide, from, you just slide up a whole step, and it just feels, you're not feeling like rust, it's just this feeling of like extreme dryness, and it's a very, I don't know, icky sort of feeling. It just drives me crazy. I just hear nails on a chalkboard when I describe it. Yeah, so that's why I would pick the Paradigms. That plus, I'm an Ernie Ball guy. That said, like I mentioned, I am getting another set of NYXLs to see, because I got to try them twice. So I have another set of NYXLs and another set of Paradigms headed here. They should be here by Monday, a couple days from now. And I'm going to test them out again in the same exact way, and see if I get the same results from them. And I'm trying not to be biased, because I have used Ernie Ball strings all my life. But yeah, I would definitely pick the Paradigms over the NYXLs if I had to choose. But they're both, extremely similar, and they both did last a very long time. If these were just, Super Slinkies, then they would have probably started to, rust out and accumulate dirt and grime within about 2 weeks. As someone who plays every day or every other day, for, at least, between 15 minutes to an hour and a half every single day, like, after 2 weeks, the strings aren't going to be fresh. They're going to start to accumulate. You could visibly see the grime. And with these, they lasted. They lasted pretty much the entire 90 days. Toward the end of the 90 days, I was able to start seeing, especially on the Paradigms, I was able to see, kind of dark spots on the strings, where I would, put my fingers. as well as on the NYXLs. I was able to see those spots. Um, but when you actually played the guitar, it didn't feel as bad as it looked. And it sounded like those spots weren't there at all. So the claims are true. They do stay fresher for longer. So does that justify the cost? So these are $15 strings versus a $5 pack of strings, right? So, okay, so regular D'Addario's roughly $5 a pack. Regular Ernie Ball Super Slinkies about $5 a pack. And so now we're talking about, now compare those to their more high scale counterparts, the NYXLs and the Paradigms. Is $5 is the $10 difference between the regular sets and the more high end sets worth it? I guess economically it does make sense because you do get a string that is going to last about 3 times as long as the $5 string. So the $15 string is going to last about 90 days, whereas the $5 string will last about a month. But there's the mental aspect of it, right? There's this thing. Even if they last that long and they still sound good, there's this. I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of like a placebo effect. If you have a set of strings on a guitar for a certain amount of time, you have this urge to just change them just because they've been sitting there for a while, regardless of how they actually sound. So if my strings have been, if I take a break from playing guitar maybe for a couple weeks, and I come back to it, and the strings, I pick up the guitar and I plug it in and I strum a chord. I'm not saying to myself, "Oh, well, this sounds good still, so I'm gonna do some recording, or these are good enough still." I'm thinking to myself, "Got to change these strings. They've been on here for too long. They're just stale, even if they sound just as good." And so that's the barrier that these companies have to get over, is that mental barrier. They have to convince people that, yes, even though they have to convince people that it's okay to leave your strings on for 90 days, or it's okay to leave your strings on for longer. They're still gonna sound as good for 3 times as long as your normal strings. That's why the price of these strings is so high. Knowing this, like, I know this intellectually, I know it, I get it, but I still have the urge to change the strings more often anyway. So for me, because of that, I don't want to pay $15 for strings. I would really only get these on a regular basis if they cost $5. The other thing is too, I do a lot of recording. So when I have a bunch of songs, I've practiced songs, and these songs are ready to be recorded, I don't care what my strings on my guitar sound like. It's just ritual. You change strings before you record. It's the same as you tune your instrument before you press record. So before you start a session, before you start a recording session, it's just ingrained into me that you change your strings. I don't care how fresh they are. Oh, you changed them yesterday? Well, recording session starts today, so we're going to change our strings. I would change 1-day-old strings. I would do that just to get the best, freshest, most crisp sound out of a session. So that's, I guess, my review of the NYXLs versus the Paradigm.